What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the HnH Podcast. I am your co-host, Humzah Rana, joined by my older brother, Huzaifah Z Rana. We are officially 1 week in 3 days away from the 2026 NFL Draft. Man, time just keeps going by super quick. It's getting crazy, man.
It's exciting. It's honestly super exciting. The fact the NFL Draft is just a week away, Humzah. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm excited. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the world of sports, but today particularly we'll be talking about our Dallas Cowboys in the NFL Draft coming up next week. I'm excited. This is a significant draft for our Dallas Cowboys. They have to truly hit on all their draft picks in order to have a successful season. We were so close last year as an offense. Defensively, we need some help, Humzah. But before we get into that, how has your week been? How are you feeling for the draft? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Tell me what your thoughts are, because I know you're a big draft guru. So tell me what you're feeling.
To me, this is one of the most exciting times of the year. I love looking into the draft. I love, if you want to say, scouting players. I love doing this type of stuff. I love looking at who's really good and like where their potential fits could be, especially for Dallas. I'm really passionate to football. Honestly, I do something football related every day. Whether that's I watch some film on some scouting players, whether I watch some Cowboys interviews, whether I'm talking to friends, every single day, and I think every day a part of my life is something related to football. And this is how much, I love the sport, and I love, this time of the year. It's super exciting. And, man, I wouldn't say I'm nervous, but like you mentioned before, we really have to hit on all these draft picks. Last couple of years, I wouldn't necessarily say we did bad. I think last year's draft was pretty good at the time. We talked about it in a previous episode of like how we grade the picks. It wasn't horrible. I think in 2024, they did pretty good there. There's a lot of people that you want to see in a Cowboys jersey, but then when the draft comes and the pick is there, you're like, oh wow, they went this direction instead of expecting something else. It could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Also, one thing I absolutely hate for the last 2 years in a row now, for the players that I really like in the draft, they're always in the same division. They get picked by the Eagles, they get picked by the Giants, they get picked by the Commanders. Jaden Daniels gets picked by the Commanders. Mikey Sainer still 2 years ago, the nickelback for Michigan, gets picked by the Commanders. Malik Neighbors, LSU wide receiver, gets picked to the Giants. Andrew Makuba, the safety for Texas, gets picked by Philly. Jahad Campbell, linebacker, he gets picked by Philly. The list goes on and on. It's actually super frustrating that all these stuff happens. And Matthew Golden last year really went to the Packers, but I hate the Packers. Everybody that I like to goes to a team I hate. So that's the only thing.
Well, if you actually go back further, I was a big Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis fan, and they went to the Eagles. So it seems that every year the guys that we like, they end up going to division rivals. But hopefully that is not the case this year. Before we continue, I just want to tell our viewers here, if you hear me coughing, or I'm muting myself, I've been going through a crazy sickness. It was called a cold for about a week now, so I'm battling through that. You might hear it in my voice, you might not, but I will try my best to keep afloat for you guys here today, and really excited for this episode, Humzah. So what do you have in store for us today, Humzah? I know this was something that you wanted to do for the last couple of weeks now, and for our viewers watching, this is a Dallas Cowboys only focused episode, in particular talking about the draft and expectations for the year. We'll get on to the world sports and a big announcement later this week for another segment coming up. But Humzah, I'll let you drive the bus here and talk to our viewers about what kind of you have in store for us in this episode, because I know this is something that you have been wanting to do for quite some time now.
Yeah, so the theme of this episode is mostly, I would say probably 80% of this episode will be just dictated towards the NFL draft. NFL drafts around. There's a lot of talk going around. It keeps getting hotter every day. So what we're gonna do first, this is not necessarily just Cowboys related stuff. It's just about how we feel and what we've been doing for what players that we've been looking for. So we're just gonna do a little scouting report ish. We're just gonna pick 3 players that we really like. Not necessarily going to be picking the best players, but we're going to be picking players that are kind of under the radar, that people know about, just players that we like and people who we think are pretty good. So we'll kind of get right into that. We'll go. I'll start. I'll start it off. So we're each gonna pick 3 players, and we're just gonna briefly talk about them and kind of who they are. I'm gonna start first.
And sorry, question for you, just so our viewers understand. Are these players that we like in general, or players that we like because of the potential fit they could have in Dallas? Like for example, I love Mendoza. I honestly, I'm not just saying this because he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I've said it since the beginning of the year. Last year, I'm a big Fernando Mendoza guy. I think he's going to be a great quarterback for, obviously, the Raiders. I'm not going to pick him in my top pick because that's not fit for it. Are we doing like that, or are we just doing general?
You can pick it however way you want. I kind of went. I picked a player. I at least picked one player who I would like to see Dallas pick. Everyone else is players who I like, but with the team that we have, I don't think we really need these guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to start it off with the first player I have is one of my favorite defensive ends in this entire class, someone that I really do like, and if Dallas has the opportunity to pick him, I would love to have the opportunity to get him. That guy is Cassius Howell, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. When you look at the physicals on a guy like Cassius Howell, he has shorter arms than Ruben Bain. So, like, there's been a lot of talks about Ruben Bain falling down in the draft because he has shorter arms. But to me, I've said this before, if you produce and you put up numbers, that's all that matters. I couldn't care less if you're 4'11". I couldn't care if you're short. I couldn't care if you're tall, if you're too tall, or if you're too slow. If you put up numbers, that's all that matters. Cassius Howell, he's 6'2", 248 pounds. Bit of a smaller edge rusher. You would want your edge rusher to kind of be about like 260, 280-ish, depending. But he's more of a speed rusher. He's super quick off the line. Sorry, I don't know what the hell happened to my voice. He's super quick off the line. He has a great first step, violent hands, and he has an unbelievable bend. This season at A&M, he recorded 11.5 sacks and 14 tackles for loss. He was just always in the backfield, always causing havoc. He even had a forced fumble. Someone that you can put him in a bunch of sets. You could put him in different stunts. I think he's a really good player. I think it showed a lot, being in the SEC, going up against some of the best offensive linemen. I think, Cassius Howell, he produced a lot, and someone I would love to see Dallas pick up. And yeah, man, couldn't say more about Cassius Howell. I really like this guy.
That's actually crazy. He has shorter arms than Ruben Bain. I feel like that would be a talking point amongst NFL analysts and the scouting department in the NFL. I did not know that. That's crazy to me. But yeah, he's a great player. And I think this is a player that I can see Dallas, if he gets to 20, that can be a guy that can immediately help the Dallas Cowboys in that situation. Obviously, we have Rashawn Gary, Donovan Ezaraku, but I think a successful defensive team in the passing game in terms of pass rushing abilities to have multiple, right? If you have guys like Cassius Howell, Rashawn Gary, and then Donovan Ezaraku in there as well, you have depth in all those positions, and you were able to capitalize at a high level with the amount of guys that you're going to come in and out each and every down. So Cassius Howell, great player, underrated for sure, but I think also he's getting his respect. A lot of mock drafts have him in between that 13 and kind of 22 range, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I've also seen some mock drafts where he's actually going later than 22. So where do you kind of see him falling in the draft if you were maybe not a team but number range that you think?
From what I watched a lot of draft videos and a lot of scouting report videos. Early on, I think he was early. We had him going at pick 17 to who was pick 17 to the Lions. I think now he's a guy you can see going from about anywhere from the last 12 picks in the first round. So up until from pick 20 to pick 32. I think if he somehow gets out of the first round, I'd be really shocked. But I can see almost anywhere between 20 to 32. I don't think he goes in the top 20
Interesting.
or
He's
like
a great.
under top 20. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mentioned interesting player, underrated player, but I also think he's getting his respect as well. So that is a great player. Do you want me to go now with my guy, and then
Yeah.
we'll go back and
We'll
forth?
go back to back.
So I picked up 3 guys here that I think are underrated and guys who I think need a little bit more respect around. And funny enough, 2 of them are from the same university. Number 1, I'm going to kind of read the NFL bio from them after the NFL draft combine to kind of see what the NFL analysts are saying about these certain players. So here I have number 1 player that I'm going to mention, Anthony Hill Jr., linebacker from the University of Texas. I'm going to quickly read this bio for him. 3-down linebacker with the playing demeanor and production of a future Pro Bowler. He posted 31.5 tackles for loss and 17 sacks and 8 forced fumbles in his 3 seasons at Texas, making an impact in every phase. His instinctive, athletic, and under control, transitioning seamlessly from read to react to finish. He plays well downhill, and he's able to get inside interior blocks and use that speed to pursue runners from sideline to sideline. And that's all I'm going to read right there. Just reading a little bit of that has to get you excited for a linebacker, and I think Anthony Hill Jr. is an underrated guy in the sense that he's not getting talked a lot in the likes of obviously Sonny Styles, even Jacob Rodriguez and other guys, CJ Allen. I think Anthony Hill Jr. is a guy that can fall maybe in the early second round, potentially late first, depending on how it goes. I kind of have him mocked in the mid-second round for me. But this is a guy who I think Dallas can benefit from extremely in many different assets of the game. I just mentioned a sideline-to-sideline runner. We only have one of those players in DeMarvion Overshown, who also, funny enough, is a Texas Longhorn. So imagine combining those 2 guys. It's just a scary thing to just even imagine. And Anthony Hill Jr., another thing I read in this bio is that he's able to get inside blocks. And I think a lot of the times when you're looking at linebackers, especially making that transition from college to the NFL, and you've seen this as well, it's hard for them to sometimes get out of blocks when you have big, professional, NFL-ready guards getting into the secondary and getting hands on linebackers. A lot of the times, these younger linebackers are not able to get off a block. So he's been able to do that at the college level. It'll be interesting to see how he does that in the NFL. But this is an underrated prospect. I think is not getting a lot of respect. And I have his metrics here: 6'2", 238 pounds. Just an overall great player, I think, and a guy that will be an instant starter for any team and a Pro Bowler for any team as well. So that is my number 1 underrated prospect out of 3.
Yeah, Anthony Hill's a dog, man. There's something about when you wear number 0 and you play for Texas, man, and you're a linebacker.
Yeah,
there's something about that, man. There's something that you are. You're just a monster. Anyways, going to my next player. Despite him being on the team I dislike the most, I got to give respects, and this is someone that he probably is my favorite receiver in this entire draft class, and that is Alabama's wide receiver, Jeremy Bernard. The transfer from UNLV, first season with Alabama. You would think that, with the receiver room of Isaiah Horton and Ryan Williams, who had a breakout his freshman year, you wouldn't really know how much targets and how much production a guy like him would have. And to be quite honest, he didn't really have the most impressive production. But, man, this guy was a really, really solid receiver. Standing at 6'1", he's 204 pounds, 64 receptions, 862 yards, 7 touchdowns. And this is a guy who is an intermediate wide receiver. This is a guy, he's not a deep threat, but this is a guy who you want probably predominantly to be your slot. He also line up on the outside, but imagine a wide receiver that runs like A.J. Brown, but has the route running ability of a guy like Stephon Diggs. Jeremy Bernard is a really, really good route runner. I think that's why that's really what pops out on tape. When you turn on the tape of Jeremy Bernard, you see his ability to create separation from the corners. It's unbelievable. He's really good after the catch. You need to get Jeremy Bernard in space. Was really productive with Alabama when Ty Simpson was healthy. His production kind of dropped off a bit when Ty Simpson was hit a lingering injury, so it was bound to happen. His combine, he ran a 4.48. That's still really fast time, but times have changed, I guess. Everyone's running 4.4s, 4.3s. At a 32.5 vertical jump, it's nothing crazy, but man, Jeremy Bernard is someone that is extremely underrated. I don't think he's being talked about enough. And you can get him in a system where he doesn't have to be the wide receiver one. Just get him some chances, get him some snaps, and I think eventually down the road he could be a really good receiver in the National Football League.
Yeah, I love that pick, Hamza, a lot. I'm just going to quickly fly through my second pick. Hamza, second underrated prospect, and I'm going to go with a guy who I think would also, funny enough, be a good fit for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to go with Keontae Scott from the University of Miami. And I'm going to quickly read about his bio here just to get our viewers and our listeners a sense of what an actual NFL analyst is saying about him after the NFL Combine. So Scott's play style and tackle production resembles that of a will linebacker. His edgy and urgent near the line with an ability to slip off blocks. He can snuff out run plays before they get started. Scott lacks ball production due to inconsistent break and anticipation and route squeezing, which I will touch on in a second. But he can twitch and trigger to close windows, wrap, and finish. Gonna quickly talk about that last sentence where they're saying he has an inability sometimes to close the gaps within receivers, but he is also quick and twitchy in the sense that we watched that game against Ohio State where he jumped that route and had that pick six touchdown. He is a will linebacker, but he can also play kind of that nickel position as well. A guy who can he's an every down linebacker who can play in every phase of the game, whether that be first down, second down, or third down. And I think Dallas Cowboys, we obviously went out there. We got Jalen Thompson from the Arizona Cardinals. We got Durant from the Rams. These are outside corners who have the anticipation to play nickel, but I think Keontae Scott's metrics and his height and weight can translate really well to a true will linebacker and also a nickel position. He's 5'11", 193 pounds. And also with the Dallas Cowboys 3-4 front, for our viewers watching, it's 3 down linemen, and then you have 4 linebackers. He, opposite of a guy like Marius Leofau, or opposite a guy like Donovan Izaraku, because I know they mentioned Izaraku is going to be kind of a linebacker going forward, or an outside linebacker per se. I think Keontae Scott can fit that mold for Dallas, and again, another prospect that I think is not getting talked about enough, just with his ability and that whole Miami Hurricane defense. You're talking about Ruben Bain Jr., Hakeem Ezador, and Keontae Scott, all top prospects on that defense who are all likely to go in the definitely 2 of them in the first round, and Keontae Scott as well, maybe in the late first, second, third round. So these are great players from the University of Miami, and I think Keontae Scott would be a great fit for Dallas, and just again a super underrated prospect that I think is not getting talked about enough.
Yeah, Keontae Scott, man, he's a pure dog, man. This is someone who's not afraid to, get dirty. He's a monster. I don't know if you've seen his highlights, but this guy tackles like crazy.
Yeah, that's a hit
not
stick
afraid
every time.
So then my last player here, someone that I actually talked about in the summer of when we first started our second episode of our podcast for people that know, running back Jonah Coleman out of Washington. I remember I said earlier he was going to be a first round, a second round running back. His production kind of dropped off a bit, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's his fault. But standing at 5'9", 228 pounds, he had a career high in touchdowns this year in 17 total, 15 rushing touchdowns, only had 758 yards on 156 carries. The skill set and the mentality of a running back like Jonah Coleman is still there. This guy is a super physical runner. He actually has the second most yards after contact by a running back in the entire FBS. So what that means for people that don't know, that means after the first hit, he's still running. He's still going. I think Jonah Coleman is a still really good running back. I personally think he's the second best running back in this class behind Jeremiah Love. A lot of people have Jadarian Price, the other running back for Notre Dame, at number 2. I think a guy like Jonah Coleman can fit in a lot of teams. I think the team that kind of stands out to me the most, honestly, is Seattle. They just lost Kenneth Walker, Washington guy, playing in the same state.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot.
I think maybe a third round, maybe even second round, Seattle can pick him up. But, man, Jonah Coleman runs super hard. I think he will be a great running back in the NFL. Not necessarily making him a predominant number one right away. Get him into a system where there's another back, and then he can eventually have good leverage off that. But I think in the future down the road, Jonah Coleman will be a dog in the NFL for years to come.
Quickly, before I get into my third prospect, what's an NFL comparable for Jonah Coleman for some of our viewers? Who's a guy that you think kind of fits that mold as a running back? I have one.
I think he's a bit like.
Come on, you don't have to think too much.
He runs a bit like Cam Scatterbo. Runs a bit like Cam. Javonte, I mean, yeah, I think he's a little bit faster than Javonte. A little smaller.
But the ability to get off. Also, Jonah Coleman, you didn't mention, he's also a phenomenal pass blocker as well.
Yeah, he is the best pass blocker in this entire draft.
So I think Javonte Williams is exactly that in the NFL. A guy who cannot get tackled off of one guy. I think that's a great comparable to Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's actually, yeah. I think, yeah, I picked Scatterbo because Scatterbo's the hard runner, but yeah, I think that Javonte Williams makes more sense.
All right, my third prospect, underrated prospect, and I happen to, all my prospects I picked in the mindset that the Dallas Cowboys, I think would be good fits for them, just because we're a Dallas Cowboys focused podcast. Excuse me. Sorry, I told you guys I was a little sick, so there you go. Okay, my third prospect, the second guy from the University of University of Texas, Malik Mohammed. So quick little bio from him. Mohammed has good coverage talent to offset his slender frame. He can man up from press or off and is in a plus pattern matcher, staying in phase and shadowing breaking points. He displays outstanding vision and to his zone coverage principles, allowing him to play with ideal efficiency on all three levels. So that is a guy who, when the Dallas Cowboys traded, we didn't have a second day pick. Then it was 2 firsts, and we had to jump to the 4th. I think after making the after making the
Odigizua, bro, come on, that's your boy.
After making the Osa Odigizua trade, sending him to San Francisco and getting a 3rd round pick, I immediately thought about Malik Mohammed being available at that pick in the 3rd round. If we don't address corner in the first 2 picks, right? Obviously, if Mansour Delane falls or if something happens in the end of the 2nd or 1st round, you never know. But I'm saying, let's say we do not address corner. I think Malik Mohammed's value in the 3rd round is truly unbelievable. His length, ability to make up plays in man coverage as well as in zone coverage, I think bodes well for the Dallas Cowboys, and just a good depth piece as well to have. You obviously have Deron Bland, Savone Revel. You just traded for Durant. Adding depth and adding people in that locker room and youth in that locker room as well, I think is extremely important. And I think Malik Mohammed there in the 3rd round would be a great pick for the Dallas Cowboys and an overall underrated prospect. I do have one honorable mention. Can I talk about this player as well? Because I went 3 defensive players, excuse me, and I'm going to talk about one offensive player who is a cheat code in NCAA 2026. Receiver Zachariah Branch. This guy he's a special player. Okay, so he reminds me a lot of a guy like Tyreek Hill coming out of the draft. A extremely twitchy, fast guy who can spread the defense as well. I have it right here. Slot receiver who can turn route touches into explosive gains. Georgia prioritized quick touches at or behind the line of scrimmage to take advantage of Branch's ability to slip tackles and add yards after catches. Another player that I think the Dallas Cowboys can benefit from, I saw it yesterday, dude. Kevontae Turpin is 29 years old, right? And we don't know his efficiency in the receiving game hasn't really been there as much as we would kind of want. His ability in the return game is phenomenal, but Zachariah Branch has the ability to return punts and kickoffs, but also be a value player in the slot for the Dallas Cowboys. You're talking about a guy who can kind of be that gadget guy, the flip guy, the reverse, the jets, the guys that Dallas has kind of lacked in for a very long time. We obviously have George Pickens, a jump ball guy, and CeeDee Lamb, Mr. Do-It-All, and Ryan Flournoy, who's now truly wide receiver number 3. But after Flournoy, who do we have? And we have 3 players who have a similar but different style. This guy, Zachariah Branch, brings a completely different level to the game with his speed and his return game as well. So I just checked his stats here. He averaged 11 yards a catch last year, and that's a first down every single time he catches the ball. So this is a guy who I think can be beneficial. Can benefit any team in the NFL, especially our Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, honestly, I was also going to go with Zachariah Branch. I think what team would you say would fit him the best? I already have like a team in mind.
Knowing the history of this team and kind of what they like to address, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are a team that kind of stands out for me. A guy who can help out Patrick Mahomes. Well, what team do you have?
I have if this team doesn't address receiver with their first pick in the first round, I think the Dolphins, if Zachariah Branch is kicking around at pick 30, and if they go guard at pick 11, they go Zachariah Branch with Miami. I think that would be a great fit because they just lost Jalen Waddle. You mentioned before he plays similar to Tyreek Hill. He ran like a 4.35 40. Still super quick. So impressive. I think Miami.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for our prospect highlight. You can call it an underrated prospect highlight. Moving on into our second segment, Humzah, I'm going to let you drive this bus yet again. I let you kind of take it away because you actually didn't fully tell me what's happening. You kind of left it as a surprise for me. So I will let you take it from here.
So what I'm doing, usually we do a mock draft of the entire first round. That's usually what we do. But this time, because, we're Cowboys fans, I have done a 7-round mock. I've done a 7-round mock draft for the Dallas Cowboys only. I'm going to talk about every pick, and I'll obviously get Huzaifah's intel after every pick. I'm going to kind of tell you what happened, what I was thinking, and how I was kind of processing through these picks. This is like not necessarily my official Cowboys mock draft because I still have another week of doing mocks. But this is basically what happened. So I'll just start it off. So Dallas have pick 12 and pick 20 in the first round. Right away, Ruben Bain off the board. Caleb Downs off the board. Sonny Styles off the board. David Bailey off the board. Monsieur Delane off the board. All the main defensive guys that we want were off on the board. There was a couple good offensive guys available at pick 12. There was Jordan Tyson. He was available. Olivega Ion. I would never say his name. The guard out of Penn State. Kenyon Sadiq was available. So if you look at the defensive side, Jermon McCoy was available. Dylan Thiedemann was available. Hakeem Messidor was also tempting at pick 12. What I did here is, even though it's a mock, right? I made a trade. The Kansas City Chiefs made a trade. I gave away pick 12, and some people may not agree with this, but I got pick 29 and pick 40 and pick 169. So I still got another first round pick, a late first rounder. We finally get a second rounder, and then we also have an additional fifth rounder. So then comes to pick 20. Messidor's off the board. McCoy's off the board. And I'm like, damn, I don't know what to do. But you know who was still on the board? I mentioned his name earlier. I was debating between Cassius Howell, but I'm like, you know what? If he's still here, I'm 100% going to take him. I went with someone we talked about before. It's the safety out of Oregon, Dylan Thiedemann at pick number 20. This is a guy who can be your nickel. We talk about Christian Parker's scheme of how important a nickel is. What he did with Cooper DeJean, who originally was a safety in college, and kind of made the shift to corner to nickel in his last year at Iowa, really made himself solidify as a nickel corner in Philadelphia. I think a guy like Dylan Thiedemann and his athletic ability, this guy ran a 4.35 40-yard dash. He had a 41 vertical jump at 6 foot, 205 pounds. Someone that was, again, all over the field, really good at tackling. Someone that play alongside Jalen Thompson. When you're in a nickel set, you already have, Bland, Ravel, maybe Kobe Durant, a nickel or whatever. And then on the opposite side, you can have Dylan Thiedemann being the nickel with Jalen Thompson playing up top. So that's what I did here with Dylan Thiedemann. Also, not to mention he had 3.5 tackles for loss as well. So this guy was getting active.
Yeah, I mean, if Dylan Thiedemann, first of all, interesting trade that you made there. But if Dylan Thiedemann is there, I don't know if he's actually going to be there at 20. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. his draft stock has really risen since the combine. A lot of people, even Cowboy fans, are saying if he's there at 12, take him at 12. He's that kind of player. He definitely will be falling in between 13 and 20. It's just a matter of will he fall to 20. And if this is the case where Dallas can get him at 20, that's a massive W for the Dallas Cowboys because he is that kind of player and a guy who can make an instant impact right away. Okay, so let's move on to your second first-round pick.
So now with the 29th pick of the first round via Kansas City, Cassius Howell was off the board. I did really, really want to Cassius Howell there. A few people that were still available. Colton Hood, the corner out of Tennessee. R. Mason Thomas, the edge rusher out of Oklahoma. And I was honestly highly considering Blake Miller, the offensive tackle out of Clemson here. I'm the only one this year who still believes that if there's a really good offensive tackle available, I would not mind taking him because we do desperately need help at right tackle. But I was with someone who is a prototypical corner build for Dallas. I went with Colton Hood, the cornerback out of Tennessee, standing at 6 foot, 195 pounds, long arms. He had a great combine as well. He had to run 4.4, 40-yard dash, and on his pro day he ran a 4.39. He had a 40.5 vertical and a 10.5 broad jump. He only allowed one touchdown this year in coverage in his 2025 campaign. I think Colton Hood, the way he's built, the long arms, he's fast. He's a shutdown corner. He's not going to be a guy who's going to get you turnovers, but he will lock up your wide receiver one. Reminds me a lot of a guy like Quinyon Mitchell, again, a guy who played in Christian Parker's Christian Parker system, but a guy Christian Parker coached. I think Colton Hood, especially at the value of at 29 and someone who's risen a lot, I think is a great pick here. And I just think Dallas also does like him. He's a good character as well. No locker room issues. Great guy. Had great days at the combine interviews. So I went with Colton Hood.
Yeah, sorry, little cough there. Yeah, I agree. I think Colton's a great player. I like that comparison that you have there with Quinyon Mitchell from Philadelphia. I think a lot of scouts have made that comparison as well. And anytime if you're a prospect or from the mindset of Christian Parker, who's to be able to be coachable, someone that you can trust and instill confidence in right away, I think it bodes well for Dallas. So I think that's another great pick. And interesting here, you went 2 defensive players, obviously, which is a big need for Dallas. So let's move on to your second round picks.
So now in second round, pick 40, I was about to take R. Mason Thomas, someone I mentioned before. But then I looked at the linebackers, and there was one guy that was available, and I'm like, I think I'm stupid if I just don't take him. I took Jacob Rodriguez, a linebacker out of Texas Tech, at pick 40, 6'1", 230 pounds. This guy had one of the best linebacker seasons coming out of college football. And again, we could talk about this after. I'm not sure why or how teams don't value Jacob Rodriguez as high as a guy like C.J. Allen or even Sonny Styles. Even Sonny Styles was great, but Jacob Rodriguez had one of the best linebacker seasons ever. I'm just going to quickly go over his stats and awards real quick. He had 63 solo tackles, a sack. He had 7 forced fumbles. 7 forced fumbles. This guy had also had 4 interceptions. And his major awards in 2025, he won the Brockno-Norwutsky Trophy, which means the nation's most outstanding defensive player. He won the Butt Kiss Award, the nation's top linebacker, the Chuck Benardic Award, nation's top defensive player, the Lombardi Award, which is the top lineman or linebacker, a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, a unanimous All-American, first-team All-Big 12, and he was a Heisman finalist with 5th voting. He was the 5th standing in the Heisman finalist as a linebacker. So Jacob Rodriguez can do it all. He also ran a 4.57 40-yard dash, 38.5 vertical, a standing vert. If Dallas can get him at 40, maybe even pick 20, or if we trade back and get another first, later first, Jacob Rodriguez would be the green dot instantly for this Cowboys defense.
Yeah, this is also, a player I was debating adding my top 3 favorite prospects. He's up there. I think he's right up there with Zachariah Branch in terms of the honorable mention or top 3 guy. He is amazing. He's a phenomenal player. You mentioned it. You brought up a good point as to why he's not getting the recognition he rightfully deserves. And it's interesting. I don't know why. It's something that I have to do a little bit of research on, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens next year in the draft. Next week in the draft. But if Dallas can get this guy in the second round, that would be a massive W for this organization in many ways. And one thing that Jerry likes to do is he likes to pick the big name guys with some moxie and big name guys with a little bit of fandom before. And he obviously was a Heisman, not a finalist, but he was the Heisman. Was he a finalist? No, he was.
He was number 5, so he barely made it.
So he was in the Heisman conversation.
Yeah,
and a guy that brings a lot of hype, a lot of media, a lot of attention. So.
And he's a Texas native too, so
so this can be a guy that Dallas can definitely target
for sure. Now we're going on to round 3, pick 92 via San Francisco, the one that we traded for Osa Digizua. I went with a guy who I was kind of surprised he was here, but also I can understand why after doing some more research. I went with Jacob Rodriguez's teammate, Romello Height, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. 6'3", 235 pounds. This season at Texas Tech, he played 14 games. He had 38 tackles, 10 sacks, and 11 TFLs. This combine, he did pretty good. He had a 4.6 40-yard dash. He had a 39
third round. Interesting.
Of a 39-inch vert, 10.5 broad jump. And I might explain to you why. So I've done some research, and I also did not know that Romello Height is 25 years old. He's a little older. Another issue that a lot of people have with Romello Height is that he kind of plays too high. And that's one thing you see. He's super quick. He is a really great defensive end. But he runs kind of super high. And also there were some injury concerns he had earlier in his college football career. So I guess that's why, he played his 5th season now with Texas Tech. It was not with Texas Tech. His last season was with Texas Tech. And I've seen a lot of mock drafts. This is kind of the area where I see Romello Height going. I think there's a guy like Joshua Josephs, Dennis Sutton, people like that who I would see go earlier. I just think with the history and the age, definitely does play a factor into this. But I picked a guy who's would make an impact instantly, and also be good playing alongside a guy like Donovan Ezraku and Rashawn Gary.
That's interesting. I've seen a lot of mock drafts and a lot of people talking about him, and I personally would be shocked if he falls to the 3rd round. I can see him maybe going in the mid-second to late second, but that's a great value, and you've gone all defensive players here with your first 4 picks here. And I do like the idea of the Dallas Cowboys investing and trying to trade back or forward or whatever way in combination to get more picks in the 2nd and 3rd round, because there is some great value in there, and I think Dallas can benefit a lot from those players.
Let me ask you a question. So let's just say this is the reality. This is what happens. How would you feel after the first 2 days of these picks? Being
I think if you can get Dylan Thieneman and Colton Hood and Jacob Rodriguez for your first 3 picks, you are jumping around, screaming and happy, and we're winning the Super Bowl. I don't know if it's exactly going to fall like that, but those are 3 great players who have definitely a lot to bring, and all 3 of these guys, I think, which is most important, can make an instant impact right away. And because of the way the Dallas Cowboys offense performed last year, we really need some help on the defensive side of the ball. That's going to make us an instant contender in that division. And we can talk about it later after the draft and heading into the season, but the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, took a step back this offseason, losing a lot of great players, and that division is there for the taking. I think the Commanders will be, competitive, but they're also, I don't know if I fully trust their defense. And then you have the Giants, who I think will have a big push this year. So that division's right there for the taking, and I think if the Dallas can help the defense right away, I think we're instant contenders.
Let me ask you this. Even if we drafted a linebacker, do you think we'd benefit of signing a guy like Bobby Wagner, just a vet to help, this young linebacking group?
Yeah, I think there's no harm in that at all, as long as he doesn't play on 3rd down where he has to run around the field, because his age is kind of catching up to him in the sense of his speed. But you talk about that leadership. You talk about a guy who can help in the run game, a guy who can be a mentor for Jacob Rodriguez and DeMarvion Overshone and Marius Leafau and Donovan Ezraku and Shamar James. I think there's no harm in that at all. And he can still play.
Yeah, he is. Now we're entering day 3 of the draft. These next couple picks, I'm gonna kind of fly through it a bit. But with the 4th pick, I pick 112. Honestly, this was my favorite pick out of all the picks so far because I think it's a super exciting pick. I think it's a pick that might maybe surprise a little bit of people, but I think it's a fun pick. I went with Michael Trigg, the tight end out of Baylor. This is a guy who was projected to go in the 3rd or early 4th, so it's around the area where we picked him. This season, he had 50 receptions, 694 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. At his pro day, he ran routes and caught passes. He also did some blocking drills with the offensive line, and this is something that I want you to. This is a really important part. I literally highlighted it, just so I can say it. During his pro day, he was monitored closely by Dallas tight end coach Linda Wells. So during his pro day, that's who was there. I think that is kind of intriguing to me. I think if he's there at pick 112, there's a connection there. Obviously, being in Baylor, in state. I think Michael Trigg, the way he is, he's one of the better route runners outside of Kenyon Sadiq. He's one of the better route runners as a tight end. He's tall. He makes unbelievable catches. Super reliable guy. And I just think, with how smart Brian Schottenheimer is, he can find ways to use a guy like Michael Trigg. I think Luke Schoolmaker has been a complete utter failure. Not to be disrespectful, but I think he hasn't been anything to what we expected of, especially taking him in the 2nd round. I think adding a guy like Michael Trigg will just add another weapon to this offense, and who knows what Brian Schottenheimer could do with a guy like this.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I think the Dallas Cowboys value Span Ford a lot, and I think he's going to be someone that he sees the field a lot more this year. If this guy Trey can be a guy who can compete with Schoonmaker, I can see that being a good pick.
I went into the mindset thinking that Schoonmaker won't make the roster, 53-man roster. That's what I think. If you're Dallas were to draft a tight end, I think Span Ford, just strictly because of his blocking, he's going to stay on the team. Span Ford is one of the better blocking tight ends in the league.
And he's my twin too.
Sorry?
And he looks like me.
And yeah, sure, he looks like you. Now we're entering the 5th round. Huzaifah, let me ask you a question. If you had an opportunity to pick a guy who had 14.5 sacks in the 5th round, would you take him?
I would take him in the 1st.
That's exactly what I did. I took a guy, Nadeem Tucker, defensive end out of Western Michigan. He had 14.5 sacks this year, 55 tackles total, 22 assisted. He had a okay combine with a 4.73 40, 9.11 broad jump and a 33.5 vertical jump. So the reason why a guy like this is gone this late is because, first of all, he plays for Western Michigan. There's not much competition. I know we had, rest in peace, Marshawn Nealon. He played for Western Michigan, but he was a little more impactful, and I'll explain why. Also, this guy is 26 years old. He's older than you.
Okay, chill. Okay.
So teams value that a lot. Nadeem Tucker, he had 14.5 sacks. He's also, I watched film, he's pretty good, but again, the competition is a lot different going from Western Michigan to, playing in the NFL. He can bend, he's physical. I think overall, if Dallas can get a guy like that, just, adding more depth to his edge rushing, I think would help significantly.
Yeah, but why don't you fly through these next couple picks here, and then we'll do an overall kind of recap here.
So then I pick, with this next 5th round pick via Kansas City Chiefs, I went with offensive tackle Markel Bell, tackle out of Miami. He's a left tackle. He allowed 0 sacks in his 2025 season, and he's only 21 years old, so I think it's good value here. And that pick 6, I went with another linebacker, Justin Jefferson. Yes, his name is Justin Jefferson, linebacker out of Alabama. 48 solo tackles, 3 sacks, forced fumble, he had an interception, 6.5 tackles for loss. Just another guy who I think he outplayed Deontay Lawson, the other star linebacker for Alabama. I don't know why teams value him so low, but it is what it is. And then I picked 6 at round 6, pick 180. I went with guard DJ Campbell out of Texas. He only let up 1 sack the whole year. His pro combine wasn't horrible. He did pretty okay. And then round 7, pick 216. One of my favorite players. I went Xavion Thomas, the wide receiver out of LSU. You mentioned Turpin earlier. He's aging. You can't really use him much. You want to watch a guy like Xavier Thomas. He's super quick. He ran a 4.28 40-yard dash, 36 inch vertical jump, but he had a 10-yard split of 1.5 seconds. Production wasn't there. Obviously, I watched a lot of LSU games. Wouldn't necessarily say it's his fault. I think there's the system and Garrett Nussmeier being hurt. But I think getting a speedy guy at round 7 is, yeah, I think it's good. And that concludes my 7-round Cowboys mock draft.
Well done, Humzah. That's phenomenal work by you. I know you did a lot of work on that research, so credit to you. And one thing I'll comment on that I really like with the mock draft is besides the player from Western Michigan, the schools at which these players are getting drafted from are high-level schools. Therefore, these players are playing a high-level competition. These players are playing in high-level, stressful situations down the stretch here, and a lot of them are competing for a national championship. So having that, I think, can translate a lot to the NFL game, especially when you're, like I mentioned before, we are in a win-now mode. Okay, we're not drafting obviously we're drafting to develop, but we're not drafting to rebuild. We're drafting to help guys, we're drafting to make these guys have instant impacts for the Dallas Cowboys and guys who can come in day one and start. So, super impressive mock draft, Humzah. Really well done, and I really like the fact that they're all these schools are big level schools. So, I know you went through a lot of them. I know you briefly mentioned them. Out of all these prospects that you mentioned here, and before we end our podcast episode, what is which one of all of them is the one that you want Dallas to draft the most? Like, this is the guy. If they don't draft the other 6 individuals, that's fine. They need to draft this guy. And we'll take away Dylan Thieneman and Colton Hood. So for round 2 and beyond, which of those guys do you need Dallas to draft?
I want to say Rodriguez. I think Rodriguez would be sick. But I also do really... Dallas 100% has to draft the edge rusher. And I think under Will McClay, ever since he became our... what's his position called? Ever since Will McClay's been the guy, we've drafted the edge rusher every year. So I think we will draft...
like he's a... I forget his title, but he's like an assistant GM. Yeah.
Whatever. I think if we can get... Yeah, I think probably my favorite pick, honestly, was even like that. I think a super underrated pick was I like Justin Jefferson a lot, linebacker for Alabama. I think as a value that you can get him in, you don't have to play him right away. Even though he played almost every snap for Bama. We already have Overshown and Shamar James. We have a young linebacking core. I just think of later down the road someone who's impactful in the way. If you watch the tape on a guy like Justin Jefferson. He's really underrated, really good. I think in my personal opinion, he's better than Deontay Lawson, who's the other linebacker who's valued a lot more than Justin Jefferson. But I think I like Justin Jefferson or Michael Trick. I think Michael Trick would be a super fun pick.
No, those are all great. Those are 2 great players you highlighted, and overall a phenomenal mock draft by you.
What about you? What would your favorite pick out of all of them?
I think Jacob Rodriguez. I'm going with the low-hanging fruit here. I think that guy, Jacob Rodriguez, you look about the combo he can have with DeMarvion Overshown, with a guy like Marius Liufau. It's exciting for so many different reasons, and he's a high-profile player, and I think Dallas likes drafting those players, and so I think he'll fit right in Dallas. But before I give it to you, Humzah, to close it out for our viewers on behalf of from my perspective, just want to thank everyone for continuing to watching and supporting our podcast. We ask that you please like, comment, and subscribe on this video, and appreciate everyone watching on YouTube and Spotify, and also
I think we're 1 subscriber away from 100.
Yeah, literally 1 subscriber away from 100, and we apologize that we weren't able to record last week. I was a lot worse last week with my sickness, so we had to cancel, but feeling a lot better this week. We ask that you guys please like, comment, subscribe on these videos for more content, and exciting week ahead in the sports world, and stay tuned to our Instagram because there will be another episode this week. 2 episodes in 1 week. I will not spoil what the episodes could be about just yet, but Humzah, I'll let you close it up for us here.
Again, we appreciate all the support. Yeah, we're literally one individual person on the street, from what 100 subscribers. Again, super exciting times. Draft is literally right around the corner. Again, we appreciate all the support, and yeah, there's a surprise episode coming out soon. So, we'll see you guys.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.